10. What difficulties arose in the vicinity of Crete? As soon as the vessel left the Asian mainland and lost the protective shore current, a powerful northwesterly wind pinned it against the southern edge of Crete, driving it off course and forcing the crew to sail with difficulty along the coast. Even in the island's lee, steering was exhausting. Progress westward was slow, the ship constantly at risk of being blown back into open water. Only after strenuous effort did they reach a small anchorage called Fair Havens, where they had to drop anchor and wait a considerable time. Yet the delay created a second problem. It was now September or October, the season when Mediterranean storms made navigation especially dangerous. Thus, contrary winds, loss of headway, and the advancing winter combined to place the crew and passengers in a precarious situation. 11th. Paul gave his shipmates what advice, yet what decision was made? Paul urged the men not to leave Fair Havens, warning that any further sailing would bring damage and great loss, possibly even loss of life. However, the pilot and the ship owner convinced the centurion Julius, and the majority agreed, to press on toward Phoenix. When a gentle south wind arose, they set sail despite Paul's counsel. 12. After leaving Crete, the ship faced what dangers, and how did the crew attempt to stave off disaster? A violent northeaster Euraquilo struck, threatening to drive the vessel onto the African sandbanks. Sheltering briefly behind the small island of Cauda, the sailors hauled the swamped lifeboat aboard, passed ropes under the hull to reinforce it, lowered the mainsail or rigging to reduce strain, and tried to keep the bow into the wind. When the storm still battered them, they jettisoned the ship's gear on the third day to regain buoyancy. 13. What must life have been like aboard Paul's ship during the storm? Terror dominated the ship. 2 weeks of relentless wind, rain, and darkness left everyone exhausted, seasick, cold, and unable to eat. Navigators had no sun or stars for guidance. Yet Paul and his companions stayed courageous, trusting the Lord's promise, confirmed by an angel, that Paul would safely reach Rome. 14. 15a. In speaking to his shipmates, why did Paul mention his earlier warning? Paul referred to the caution he had given before the voyage resumed, not to gloat or say, "I told you so," but to show that the unfolding crisis confirmed the reliability of his counsel. By reminding them that events had matched his prediction of damage and great loss, he established credibility for the fresh assurance he was about to relay. In effect, he was saying, "Because my first words proved true, you can trust this next message as well." That paved the way for the terrified crew and passengers to accept his God-given promise of survival. 14. 15b. What may we learn from the hopeful message that Paul delivered? Paul's declaration that not a single life would be lost, because God has granted you all those sailing with you, highlights Jehovah's personal concern for every human. From this we learn that sharing divine hope can steady others even in extreme danger. Paul's confidence, rooted in God's promise and reinforced by the angel's words, shows that genuine hope rests on God's unfailing reliability, not on circumstances. His example urges us to pass that hope to as many people as possible, remembering that Jehovah does not desire anyone to be destroyed, but desires all to attain to repentance. Precious lives are still at stake today, and our calm, faith-filled words can strengthen those around us, just as Paul's did on that storm-tossed ship. 16, 17a. Paul took what occasion to pray, and with what effect? After 2 harrowing weeks adrift, when the crew finally steadied the ship by casting anchors and Paul urged everyone to eat, he publicly gave thanks to God before them all. His prayer, offered on the deck of a doomed vessel, instantly lifted morale. They all took courage and began taking some food themselves. Thus, Paul's appreciative prayer transformed panic into renewed strength, proving how a well-timed public petition can comfort and fortify others. 16, 17b. How did Paul's warning come to be fulfilled? At dawn, the crew cut the anchors, set a small foresail, and ran the ship aground. The bow stuck fast while the stern shattered under pounding waves. Soldiers contemplated killing the prisoners, but Julius intervened. He ordered all to swim or cling to wreckage, and, exactly as Paul had foretold, all were brought safely to land. Every one of the 276 souls survived, though the ship itself was lost. Paul's prophecy proved true in every detail. Cargo and vessel were sacrificed, yet not a single life was lost.